You can hear it. We'll turn it off. If it gets really hot, we'll turn it back on.
Okay, if you see me. Well, if you're interrogating me too hard,
Then it'll
I might start
sweating profusely.
Yep.
All right, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Yep.
Do you know who Oz X Lifter is on YouTube? Is that you or is that someone else?
I'm not even going to say anything about that.
Oh, okay. So you do know who it is, though.
I do know who it is.
Because that's who I've been stalking the last few nights to catch up on all of your lifting.
Yeah.
And your partner Steve was a powerlifter as well, right?
Yeah.
And a really good one.
Yes. So that's how I kind of got into, that's how I got into powerlifting.
Yeah.
And then which went on to weightlifting. So, wow. Okay. So I started off my career in sport as an aerobics instructor. After, actually I was teaching aerobics to get a bit of extra money as I was going through uni. Great hours because you can do early morning classes and night and so forth. In fact, I used to even teach at uni, so I'd run along to the gym.
And what university did you go to?
Macquarie Uni.
Oh, okay. Have you seen their gym lately?
No, actually, funnily enough, how things come back as a circle. Through work, I'm now doing the insurance for Macquarie Uni, so just recently in the last couple of months, so I'm actually going to get out there again. I was talking to
awesome.
Apparently it's changed heaps. They've got a hospital and everything out there, so amazing place.
It's amazing, and the gym is amazing there as well.
So when I used to teach there, this would have been 89 to 91.
Yep.
It was basketball courts.
That's all?
Yeah, well there was a tiny little gym as you walked in the door, and then you'd sort of got this corridor, and I think there were squash courts as well, and sort of basketball courts, and I used to teach classes in the basketball courts at lunchtime.
Cool.
So anyway, so did uni. Then when I finished my degree, I decided to go over to Europe. My grandmother is in England, so was over there for a few months and sort of did the backpacking thing with a friend and my sister. And then I decided to stay over there longer. So 6-month trip kind of turned into 4 years, and it was during that 4-year period that I met Steve, my now husband, and he was a powerlifter. And I actually met him in a gym. So he was a friend of my sister's, funnily enough. And I, being a bit of a gym junkie, aerobics fanatic, was in the gym, and she introduced me to him there, and yeah, that's how we met.
Love at first sight.
Not quite, not quite. He was probably laughter at first sight. I think he fell off the treadmill he was on or something like that.
Was he cutting? Because he's a 110, right?
He was, yeah.
See, I did some good stalking.
You have done your research. Yes, he was a 110 lifter. So no, I don't know why he was on the treadmill, because I don't think he's ever been on a treadmill since. But he just happened to be on the treadmill when I walked in the gym, and he fell off the treadmill when he saw me. He says that for him it was love at first sight. But anyway, so yeah, no, funny guy, and we hit it off, and I started working over there. And once you start working full time, it's hard to get to the gym in the evenings. You know, you sort of, well, for me, I just felt it was too easy to just want to go home and sort of put my feet up and watch telly. So Steve, who was powerlifting, said, well, why don't you do some powerlifting comps? Because if you've got a competition to aim for, a goal, that will give you the discipline to make sure you go to the gym. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I just got hooked to start off benching, I don't know, 30 kilos or something, pretty weak, and just that addiction of improving by 2.5 kilos or 5 kilos, you know, sort of after a couple of months, and I just got hooked and I loved it. And we were training with a cool group of people. There was about 5 of us, and I think that makes it as well when you've got a bunch of close friends that you're training with and you're all sort of training for the same goal. So yeah, so that's how I started out in powerlifting, 52 kilo lifter. And I went to British championships, European championships.
So was that with the IPF?
God, it was, the organisation I was lifting with has changed since then. So yeah. I don't know. No, I think it was, I'm trying to think now, one of the, I don't think it was IPF, it was one of the other international
The only problem with powerlifting is there's a million federations, right?
I know, and I can't keep up with it. Now my son's just started powerlifting, and I'm like, which organisation does he join? Yeah, so
Whichever one's the funnest.
Well, whichever one's the closest.
Oh, that too.
You know, and having comps that are sort of relatively close, but
And relatively short.
and without politics, and you know, that support the lifters.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's another conversation.
So not certain powerlifting federations.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was doing powerlifting, and so yeah, ended up 1996. Steve, I never intended to live in England forever. I love it as a country to visit, but it's kind of hard living there. Well, it was back then. I was earning pretty shit money, and the weather gets you down. Even though we were down the south of England, where it's probably nicer than up north, and they do have nice summers, but they only last for 2 weeks. So yeah, I was always intending to come back to Australia. So Steve immigrated, and we came back here in 96. Powerlifting, not too popular in Sydney around that time, and we ended up joining CAPO, so whatever organisation internationally that is.
So that's like CAPO, something, powerlifting organisation.
Yeah. Yeah, so we did a few powerlifting comps.
Can I ask you a question? When you were powerlifting, was it just geared powerlifting at that time? Like, were you guys wearing like the multiply suits and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, how fun's that? I've never worn one.
Oh, pretty bizarre. So yeah, we used to wear the full-on like Teflon suits. So to squat, which helps you. I mean, I got to a 165 kilo squat, weighing 56 kilos.
Wow.
And the super suits do help.
Is that what you call them? Super
suits, yeah. And they used to pull the skin off your knuckles trying to get them on. Sometimes I'd have two people sort of either side of me sort of pulling it. I'm doing signals, which is probably going to hand signals, which looks funny with a...
Did you ever have to use like, I see people using like cellophane and plastic bags to get them on sometimes?
No, never did that. I've heard of people using Vaseline.
Oh yeah.
But no, we just kind of talc would be good.
Oh
to,
yeah.
To slip them up. So yeah, they're pretty uncomfortable, and you'd end up with massive bruises sort of around your hips and
from putting them on.
No, from the pinch marks from when you get down into the squat, because they spring you back up out of the squat.
How thick are they?
Trying to think of how to describe it.
Like a couple of mil, like compared to a weightlifting suit.
Oh well, weightlifting's like lycra.
Yeah.
Weight suit's lycra. So this is like almost like a canvasy.
So it's not like the material that your knee sleeves and stuff are made out of.
No. It's I've probably still got one at home. It's kind of I don't even know what material it is. It's just really, it doesn't give.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of it. So that it's actually hard to squat in it. The bench shirts, for instance, your arms end up sort of straight out in front of you. You can't put your arms down. And so that's the whole point, that you know, as you have the weight on you to bench, the suit sort of helps spring it off your chest.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people actually having to train their like upper back muscles and biceps more when they're benching with a bench shirt, because they just can't physically get the bar down. Sometimes they get called for.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Maybe using a heavy one.
Yeah, no, I've not heard that. But you know, they can probably put 10 kilos or so on your lift.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, so we used to not train in them until probably 2 to 3 weeks before the comp, and then the last sort of couple of sessions before the comp, you'd suit on. So just to get used to it, because you're right, if you've put a bench suit on for the first time, you'd really struggle, because it totally changes the line of the lift. So as you're pulling it down, so you miss it all over the place. So you have to get used to it. Yes, fun stuff. So yeah, that's powerlifting for you. So I did, what were my best lifts in powerlifting? I had 165 squat at 56. My last comp, I went up a body weight, so I got sick of dieting down to 52. It got harder and harder. 165 squat, I think I benched about 105 or something like that, and deadlifted, well, officially it was 165. I did deadlift 175, but they failed it because they said I hitched the lift, but but I still know in my heart that I lifted 175 kilos, even if it's not on a record.
And was that at like a World Championships or a
No,
Australian comp?
My last ever powerlifting comp was in 1997 at Australian Championships in Brisbane.
Okay.
So, and I think I've still got records actually, somewhere on the CAPO website. I saw them a few months ago. There's still a record there. But yeah.
Why is your son into powerlifting now? Is it just like, was it his choice, or was it you guys pushing him into that?
No, it was his choice, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't push him. I probably would have steered him away from it. He actually says he wants to do weightlifting one day as well, and I think we said, well, why don't you just start off doing a bit of powerlifting?
Well, it definitely worked for you.
Yeah, he's now 15, but when he started in the gym, he was probably 13.
Yep.
Maybe 14. So I hope he's not listening to this, but he probably lacks the maturity to sort of let him go for it, if you know what I mean. Like, he needs supervision.
Yeah.
So he might listen to this one day. It's done wonders for him though.
And what what weight class is he in at the moment?
70. He weighs about 72 kilos, so he's 75 plus. Yeah.
I'm just trying to picture it because, like, you were a 56 and Steve's obviously a 110.
No,
like,
he's
is
got
he going
my
to be
build.
in the middle?
He's definitely got my build. He's not a lot taller than me. My 11-year-old daughter's taller than me though, so he's not particularly tall. He's definitely got my build. He's got a great powerlifting, weightlifting build, that's for sure, and he's naturally strong. Like, my husband Steve comes home and says, "Oh my God, he's so strong." He just, once he gets the confidence, he's just, if he applies himself, he'll be great.
And does Steve still do a lot of lifting?
He has been until the last few months. He's just torn all the muscles in his shoulder, so it's a really bad injury. He doesn't know how long it's going to take to recover, but I think that's why Brandon was doing powerlifting, because Steve's still going to the gym, and so it was just sort of easy for him to tag along and Steve would coach him a little bit.
It's probably good father-son bonding as well.
It is, yeah, it is. Yep. So, yeah.
How did you find weightlifting then? Was it going from powerlifting?
Yeah, so, well, I guess the reason I gave up powerlifting was because it was difficult at that time in Sydney. There was no comps being held in Sydney by that organisation, and Steve at the time was working a second job working on door security, and the guy that he worked with, Craig, he used to be a weightlifter and he knew Luke Borragini. So he was saying to Steve, "Oh, she should try weightlifting. The Sydney Olympics is around the corner, and it's the first time women's weightlifting will be at an Olympics." He knew about my sort of aerobics background and the powerlifting background, and he said, "Oh, she'll probably be really good at it. She's got flexibility from aerobics and the strength from powerlifting." And he kept sort of pestering Steve, "Come on, give Luke a call and just listen, hear him out, learn about it or whatever." And eventually I thought, okay, well, why not? Something different. Powerlifting, I feel like I've come to an end. I've kind of reached my limit as to how far I can go, unless I want to take the next level and, I don't know, take illegal performance enhancing drugs or whatever. I felt like I'd reached my limit. So I thought, yeah, I'll go and meet this Luke guy and see what he's like and see what he has to say. I didn't even know what a snatch and a clean and jerk was, so I knew there was a snatch and a clean jerk, but I had no idea how.
So you just knew that there was a sport called weightlifting, basically?
Yeah, and I knew that you put the weight above your head, and I thought, well, that's not very feminine. And I thought, well, I'll go and check it out and see. Anyway, so it's embarrassing to admit that now. I don't think I've ever told anyone that, actually. It's a secret scoop. So, rang Luke, made an appointment to go down and see him at Burwood PCYC, and went down there on a Friday night after work in my suit, and my high heels, and went and met this guy called Luke, and there he was, sort of over 6 foot tall, and I'm 5 foot. So this sort of giant guy with a booming voice terrified the shit out of me.
I don't think you're alone in thinking that. He's quite an intimidating figure when you first meet him.
Yeah, for sure. So,
And also when you second meet him at third meeting.
and if you do the wrong thing.
Like not wear shoes inside the gym?
Oh, he would send people out if they just walked in the gym and didn't say hello. He'd say, get back out there and come back in and say hello. So, very intimidating, but great coach, I have to say. So he said he'll try me out for 10 minutes, just sort of put me through. So I went and got changed. Obviously didn't do that in my suit and high heels, so I went and got changed, tried me out, put me through a few sort of moves to see if I had
what kind of like movements was he having a look at?
Trying to get me sort of into a squat position and a sort of bottom of a snatch position, and he had this broomstick he'd be sort of using to
shift you around.
Shift me into, just get your bum down here more, or your shoulders back here, or over more, and I thought he was going to hit me with this stick. But yeah, 10 minutes turned into probably an hour and a half, and he's like, yeah, okay, you might have what it takes. Yeah, you might be all right. And then he sort of laid it out as to what would be expected, and no more powerlifting, no more aerobics, purely weightlifting only. And what do you want to do? Where do you want to go with this? And I said, well, I want to go to the Olympic Games. This was April 1998, so the Olympic Games was just over 2 years away. And he's like, gee, that's a big call. I don't think anyone has ever made it to an Olympic Games with sort of 2 years training under their belt. But, well, I'm not going to promise you anything. Maybe the Commonwealth Games 2 years later might be a more realistic target. But, we'll see. And when he said that to me, like, that's a tough goal, it kind of made me a bit more hungry for it. Like, I'll show him.
Yeah.
I can do it. I'm strong. I've got this strength from powerlifting. And I looked up the records at the time, and so 58 kilo class, which is a comfortable weight class for me because I'd just come up from 52 to 56. And I think the clean and jerk Australian record around that time was only about 85 kilos or something like that.
And who had the record, do you remember?
I think it might have been either Angela Bentley or I'm trying to think. There's a girl in Victoria who's still around and coaches and referees, whose name escapes me at the moment. It was a long time ago. And I was thinking at the time, well, if I can squat, over 100 kilos, or at the time, 140, 150, 160 kilos, surely I can, and if I can bench over 100 kilos, surely I can clean and jerk 85. So this is how I had it in my head, just from the strength. But once I started learning actually how to snatch and how to clean and jerk, and obviously I learned the difference between the two lifts, I went away and did a bit of research, I realised how technical it is, and it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you don't have that technique to, get that bar to travel in a straight line or what have you, you might be able to swing it up there with brute strength above your head, but to actually get it to stay there and, not hurt yourself, yeah, it was a lot harder than I thought.
Did you have to change your squat technique as well?
Yeah, definitely.
So you were squatting low bar?
I was squatting once a week when I was a powerlifter, yeah, with the bar quite low down my back and sort of leaning forward. Deep squats, like breaking parallel, but yeah, totally. So changed my squat technique to the high bar, more upright, obviously brought in front squats.
Was that hard to transition like that? Or did you find it pretty easy because you're already flexible?
The flexibility would have helped. Squatting just always came naturally to me. So I don't find that difficult. It was snatching, learning how to snatch, that I found incredibly difficult. Falling on my ass so many times and getting splinters in my pants from the wooden platforms and
that are probably still being used today.
probably. Yeah, it was the technique of the snatch that really got me. So I started off training probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday to start with, and then because my technique was so appalling, and even cleans, I'd power clean it and then squat down. Luke's like, no, you've got to catch the bounce, you've got to drop into it quicker. So we decided to introduce double day training. And Luke said, well...
And sorry, how soon was that into your training?
Wasn't long. I think, trying to think now, it was probably within 6 months, I reckon. So within 3 months of training, I got selected to the Australian Championships on the state team. It might have been after that, when we came back after that, because I came 4th out of 8 at my first sort of major weightlifting comm, and I really embarrassed myself because my technique was I was so nervous, and I don't know why, because I'd been to World Championships and European Championships, you know, in powerlifting, why I was so nervous at in a weightlifting comp. But
and did you just revert straight back to powering everything?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just all the technique that had been coming along nicely beforehand, it just went out the window. And in fact, I came across an old video of a clean and jerk, and it's pretty funny. It should be on Australia's funniest home videos, but yeah, it was pretty ugly. So yes, I think it was after that Luke introduced the twice a day training. So I'd go to build PCYC before work on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, so an extra 3 sessions, and then we do an extra session on Saturday. So we basically doubled the sessions in a week. And Luke's philosophy, which was completely right, was the extra sessions was for the technique, really. It was like doing an extra year's training, because I had such little time between then and the Olympics.
Yeah.
So it was like really, really good at sort of getting the technique improvement. And
with those extra sessions, do you remember them being like fairly light or fairly heavy? Like, were the training weights that you were doing in those sessions like significant, or were they mainly lightweights just to work on the technique?
Yeah, so the morning sessions were mainly light, working on technique, squats, power stuff, and pulls, and it was more technical, snatches and things. So yeah, it was
tough stuff.
It was tough. It was torn calluses on the hands, and the end of the week lying in bed and your legs aching, and when you can't get comfortable. But I never, I probably complained a little bit, but I knew that it would be worth it. Like I had to do everything I could possibly to put myself in the best position to qualify for Olympic Games, and it worked.
Did you have like certain numbers that were goals at that point in time, or was it just on ranking? Like, did you just have to be like the top ranked, 55, 58 or 53?
So earlier on, it was more just about my own PBs, and then as I got close to records, it was going for Australian records or Oceania records. And then I pretty much left the tactics to Luke and Steve. They did all the research about what the rankings were, and what weights I needed to do to get selected, and that's why I started competing in different weight classes as well. So whilst 58 was natural, leading up to the Olympics, they made me compete in a few comps at 63, just to try and sort of broaden, if I could get qualified in more than one weight class, then just to sort of keep the options.
Because for the Olympics we had a full roster, right?
We had a full team because it was a home Olympics, so we had four women and 8 men. Yeah.
And it was the first women's Olympics ever for weightlifting.
Yeah, and in your hometown, what more could you really ask for?
What was your first big international competition?
That would have been World Championships in Greece in '99 in Athens. Yeah, that really was an eye-opener. Going to Athens and then going to the training hall and seeing the weights that were being thrown around by the other countries and other teams. And '99 was a qualifier year for the Olympics, so depending on how well the countries did at that World Championships meant how many lifters
they'd
gets, yeah, that's right, for the Olympics. So they all had full teams there, and we're all going full on, hardcore. It was amazing. I felt really embarrassed with the weights that I was doing. I think I came 20 somethings in my results. I came away with PBs. I think that was the first time I clean and jerked 100 kilos or something.
And were you a 58 at that time?
58, yep. And so I actually did PB, I think it was Australian records on the clean and jerk and the total. I think I messed up my snatch, which I tended to do a lot in those days. Usually it was because I was nervous, and I'd always, without a doubt, miss my first opening snatch because I was so nervous, and then I'd get the second one and miss the third one. Usually that was the pattern. But anyway.
So were you a 4 out of 6 lifter?
Yeah, I think once in my career I might have got 6 out of 6. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, just like P's get degrees, 2s is all you need, right? Just one snatch, one clean and jerk.
Yeah, I know. but talk about putting the pressure on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine how tough that is, especially at a high level.
Yeah. So, yeah, and just as I said, at world level, it was I felt embarrassed at the weight. Although I was doing good weights for Australia, looking at what they were doing in other countries was just like, oh gosh, I think the China lifter who came first at that comp, I think she was clean and jerking 130 or something like that, and here I was doing 100 kilos. It was just phenomenal. Anyway.
I think that's still a problem that Australian lifters have to deal with today, from what I've talked to other Comm Games lifters and stuff.
Yeah, I think that was probably when I realised there's no point in looking at what other people are doing, and it was probably a strategy that started at that Games, was that I just have to concentrate on what I'm doing and what I can do, and try and break my own PB, because I did find that if I was ever in a warm-up room or watching what my competitors were doing, it would sort of distract me from what I was doing. So yeah, after that I just decided, well, there's no point in worrying about what they're all doing. I'll just do what I can do and do the lifts that my coach tells me to put on the bar, and I'll leave the tactics up to the coach and just do what I can. And yeah, and then that sort of seemed to work for me from then on.
In powerlifting, did you compare yourself to other lifters come comp day?
There wasn't a lot of competition, to be honest, back then. I would often find myself being the only lifter in that weight category, particularly in Australia. I don't think I actually would find I was competing against people in other weight categories, and then I obviously didn't know the formula, just hoping that I might be best lifter or something like that. So yeah, it wasn't very popular. It wasn't a very big sport back then, not like it is now.
Yeah, powerlifting's
really
huge.
Yeah, really come along.
And you see, there's just a heap of powerlifting gyms around, more than weightlifting gyms.
Yeah, I don't know what happened or when. Obviously it was around the wrong time.
After you came back after that Greek World Championships, what was the rebuild like? You said you came back with some new insights and just chasing your own numbers and your own PBs. What other things did you take from that competition and implement into your training?
It was probably more serious from then, because from thereafter, that was the second, I think that was the second qualifying event we had for the Olympic selections. So we had 99 Australian championships, world championships, and then I think the following year we had, so in 2000 we had, might have been Oceania championships, and then there was the selection trials. So how you performed at those big comps really was crucial to whether you were likely to get selected on the team. So yeah, it was just totally focused and dedicated towards doing the best that I could in training and any competition. in stepping stones really to the selection.
Were there many people that were also in the running for your spots?
Yeah. So 4 spots up for grabs, and there was probably about, I think, 11 or 12 girls who qualified for the selection trials. And
do you remember who those girls were? I know Scene was one of them, right?
no,
Or did Scene come after?
I think she came after that. No,
Okay.
so Caroline Pileggi, Sari Williams, Simone Ingram. I think there was a girl from Tasmania. Obviously Amanda Phillips, Michelle Kettner at the time, Megan and myself. My training partner Megan and I were both the same weight category, 58. So that was always a real worry. Would they select 2 at 58, which is another reason why I started doing comps at 63, because there was the thought that if they couldn't select 2 in the same weight class, you know, I'd give myself the best
A bit of
chance,
leeway.
a bit of leeway, yeah, and there was strong competition, and because I was fairly new on the scene, and a lot of those girls had been around a long time and had been fantastic lifters in their time. So I was kind of chasing not the weights that they were doing, but you know, on formula, sort of the same level that they were at. So yeah, it was pretty intense and pretty stressful. And if I remember rightly, 2 weeks before the trials, I came down with tonsillitis. And you know, when you've got a cold, you can kind of fight through it and keep training. But when you've got a virus, I felt like really weak, and I thought I was getting better. And then the day before the trials, it came back, and I was like, oh, how am I going to go? I think I managed to get through the snatches okay, but in the clean and jerk, my legs were a bit weak, but yeah, managed to get through it. And there, we all sort of sat in the room afterwards, waiting for them to select the team, and
They did it then and there.
they actually did it that afternoon. Yeah, and well, actually, I have to get this right. They couldn't officially select the team. They had to select who was going to be nominated.
Because they have to send it off to the
AOC to get them to ratify it. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah.
But they told you then and there, like, who was nominated?
Yeah, they went and had a meeting.
Yeah.
And I just recall us all sitting in this room with our sort of family and friends. It must have been an hour or so. Like, it wasn't immediate. And they sort of came out and announced the names. And I was ecstatic, of course, when my name was read out. But at the same time, I felt really bad for all the girls who hadn't been selected. So I was trying not to sort of jump around and make a fuss around it. Well, I'm not that kind of emotional jump around person anyway, but I was just trying to be respectful for the ones that would have been devastated that they didn't get selected. But
What did it feel like sitting in that room for an hour?
Oh, we were just chatting and joking and nervously excited, and yeah.
And what does it feel
Stress.
like when you heard your name? Like, surely that's, 2 years of like all your hard work plus all that foundation work you put in over however many years getting strong enough to do the sport in the first place.
I knew I was in a pretty good position. Obviously, I was ecstatic to hear my name. So to answer your question, yeah, I was absolutely ecstatic to hear it, to hear my name called out. But I kind of felt confident that because I had done so well in all of the other comps, I knew I was in a good position to be in the top 4. And I'd lifted okay on the day, and I thought I've done enough. I'm pretty sure I've done enough to get selected just because of my consistent performances over all the other comps. But you never know. So, but yeah, so I was ecstatic. And then it was like, okay, there's no holiday, there's no time for celebrations or, it's just straight back into the gym on Monday. Now it's serious, and now we're going to train for the games. So yeah, that was it.
Were you just straight back into the gym with like renewed vigor, or was there a period of almost like decompressing, because sometimes when people reach their goals, like the goal is to qualify for the Olympics, not compete at the Olympics.
Yeah, I've heard that said a lot actually, that people, for them, the goal is to just make it there, and they don't sort of, and then particularly because we're not on the same sort of level as our international competitors, it's like I knew I had absolutely no chance of medaling or even top 5 at the Olympics. So yeah, you're right, some people do take their foot off the pedal because they think, well, that's it, I've made it now, I'm on the team. But for me, I definitely didn't take my foot off the pedal because I wanted to show people that I deserved that spot, and that, you know, I was going to do my absolute best at the games, even though I had no chance of a medal. And your friends and your family, people who don't know the sport, would say to you, oh, you never know. You never know what might happen on the day. But I'm like, seriously, I'm not going to pull a 30 kilo PB out of my hat. You know, it's just, that's not going to happen when I knew what the Chinese girls were doing.
Though it is always a chance that a whole bunch of people can bomb, right?
Yeah, well, actually a couple did bomb. I think there was 17 in my session, and I think a couple did bomb, and I ended up coming 10th. So my goal was to do PBs if I could, and I thought it would be absolutely fantastic to make the top 10. That was my goal.
Do you know what your predicted ranking was?
I think I was ranked something like 15th.
So you improved your predicted ranking, which is very good for like the AOC and the AWF. They would have been like, yes, we're doing good stuff.
I don't know. I think the AWF was happy, yes, certainly, because they know the sport,
They know the
what
sport,
we're
yeah.
up against. I always felt a little disappointed with the rest of the world, as in the public, and not the AOC, but I mean the AOC was definitely, their goals were medals, and funding's based on medals. But what kind of made me a little disappointed is, so when we're at the games and you're in the athletes village and they deliver piles and piles of hero mail. Back in those days in 2000, it wasn't so much emails. All the kids in the schools would be writing letters in their classes, letters to the Australian team members. And all these letters would be saying, oh, I hope you win gold, and you know, I hope you come first. And I kind of got a bit disillusioned. I thought, wow, all you teachers out there need to be teaching your kids that it's not just about winning, it's about doing your best, and it's about, you know, I was just so proud to be representing my country at a pinnacle, you know, at Olympic Games. And yes, of course I would love to have won gold, but not everybody can win. And I say this to my kids now, you know, someone's got to come last, and someone has got to come third, and someone comes second. Not everybody can win, and yes, you've got to aim for, you know, the best that you can, but you've also got to be realistic, and you've got to be prepared that if you don't get there. So I don't know, it was just a little disappointing, this focus on winning and gold medals, and that would have been fantastic, but it was never going to happen. Not at Olympic Games, although Dean Lucan won a gold medal, of course, but that was when the Soviet Union
Pulled out.
Boycotted. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Everyone forgets that. But anyway.
Everyone just remembers the medal.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Robert Cabas also got silver, right?
Yeah.
And everyone was happy about that, and then Dean Lucan got gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember that.
That would have been awesome to be at an Olympic Games when there are other countries not there. Well, actually, it kind of happened at Commonwealth Games 2 years later, because Nigeria, of course, was a very strong nation in weightlifting. And because they pulled so many positives in the lead up, they got banned from the Comm Games. So all of a sudden, Nigeria was out, and I was like, oh yes, I've got a chance of a medal here. So yeah, that was kind of good, but justified as well, you know.
Yeah. And you won silver at that one? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that was kind of weird as well, because so I ended up going to two Comm Games, as you know, 2002 and then 2006. And in 2002, came away with silver and felt really bummed about it, because I lost the gold.
Ah.
And
Was that because the lady from India?
Yeah, so what had happened is one of the...
You can talk me through the entire comp if you want. I'm sure all you athletes are able to like memorize
Well,
what
yeah,
happened. And
yeah, well, God, where do I start? So I gave up a lot for those Comm Games. I quit my job and took 6 months off work. Took out a bank loan to help cover mortgage payments. Steve was still working 2 jobs, but my income, you know, we needed it. So we took out a bank loan. Bloody bank manager, when I was applying for the loan, asked me, "So you on the gear?" I was like, really? How inappropriate to ask me a question like that. This is the sort of shit you have to deal with when you're in weightlifting. But anyway, so I gave up a lot. I gave up my career, money. I did have a silent sponsor come forward who didn't reveal who they were, who gave me a little bit of cash each week just to help towards the sort of...
Wait, so you didn't know who they were?
Who were.
Do you know who they are now?
I think I know, but
Okay.
I'm not
100%
sure.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wait, how does that even happen? Like, how does
somebody went through Luke, and Luke would just appear, gave me this envelope of a little bit of cash each week, which I was so grateful for, because, well, you know, there's just so hard. Back then there was probably more funding than there is now. I don't know how much funding there is now, but it was hard back then. You know, we had.
Well, you're an elite athlete, not making an elite income.
Yeah, pretty much. We had NSWIS, the New South Wales Institute of Sport, helped a little, like gym fees and going away to nationals and Oceanas and things like that. So there was a little bit of funding there. A little bit of funding did come up, I think, was it those games or 2006, from the Commonwealth Games Association, from somewhere. Now my memory is fading, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of money. So, and living in Sydney, where the cost of living is astronomical, and you know, at the time I was in my 20s, and you know, starting out with a mortgage, and yeah, it was tough. So I quit my job for 6 months. I was training 3 times a day, 13 sessions a week. And I feel like I gave up a lot and put everything I could into that games. So a month beforehand, I tore my rotator cuff and couldn't lift my arm up. Fortunately, it healed really quickly. It was only a really, really minor tear. So I had that sort of on the eve of the games. I had to drop a weight category.
So you dropped to 53?
Dropped to 53, and so, yes.
Something that you said at the start of the podcast that you would never do.
Yeah, I said, I know. So again, it was about spreading the options open. So I qualified for those games at 53, 58 and 63. And dropping down to 53, God, that was hard. That was really hard. I was older, and
were you a heavy 58? Like, did you have to cut a lot to get to 58 in the first place at that stage?
My natural body weight by then, I would just naturally, without dieting, I'd probably weigh around 60, 61.
Okay.
So I was actually weighing 61 kilos when Luke rang me one Sunday night, 4 weeks before the Commonwealth Games, and said, "I've decided you're definitely going to 53. That's where your best chances of the medal." I'm like, seriously, I've just eaten a big bag of M&Ms and half a fruitcake. You couldn't have rung me an hour ago. So I had 4 weeks to drop a lot of weight, and I was pretty good at dieting. I mean, it's tough mentally, but from the years in powerlifting, and thanks to my powerlifting coach in England, he'd really set us up with some good little sort of tools or tips on how to diet without losing strength. So, you know, cutting carbs basically, and but it was a pretty boring diet, you know, taking out salt and carbs from everything. So yeah, so I had a lot of weight to drop for those Comm Games. Got there, nursing an injury, and I did the best I could. So on the eve of the games, the Indian team decided that one of their 48 kilo lifters would go up to 53. And if she hadn't have gone up, then yeah, I would have probably won the gold, but never mind. And another games where I missed my first snatch because I was so bloody nervous that my heart was pounding.
Was that the 77? 75?
Yeah, so what was it? Did I go 75, 77? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember now. But yeah, I think I missed the first one, got the second one, and maybe missed the third.
At the 2000 Olympics, did you have 2 suits?
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Why was that?
Well, we were given a navy blue suit and a green and gold suit, and we thought the green and gold was a pretty vile green, and we didn't particularly like it, but it was green and gold, and we wanted to wear, you know, the colours. So the navy one was probably meant to be like a training suit, but we decided, so Megan and I decided that we'd wear the navy one for the snatches and then change into the green and gold for the clean and jerk. Yeah, I know. I'm such a girl.
It was so confusing because I was like, am I watching a different comp or is this the same competition?
You see, really important stuff like that, like how you look, you know.
I get it. Because normally people just put a shirt on in between their snatch and clean and jerk so that the bar doesn't slip. But you change your entire wardrobe.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I just, that was something that was on my mind last night and I wanted to ask about it. But, I mean, the navy suit was good, but you couldn't tell where you were from at all.
Yeah.
Wearing that. The
It's
green
much
and
more flattering though.
yeah, the green and gold one. At least we knew. Oh, I was like, oh, like if you're fast forwarding through the videos, you're like, oh, yeah, that's
But
Australia.
it was a pretty ugly green. But anyway, but I mean, I think every sports person, you know, dreams of wearing their
Green and gold.
countries. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, was it green and gold in Manchester? I don't think it was. I think it was navy blue with a bit of gold trim around the sleeves. Yeah, they ditched the green and gold for that one. They brought it back for Melbourne, green and gold. And it was a much nicer green. It was sort of a darker green. Again, more flattering because it's really important for us girls.
Well, I think the suits last year were like, they were gold and like almost like an aqua green.
Actually, I thought they were nice.
Yeah, but I thought they were nice too. But
Yeah.
like the green is slowly evolving over time,
Yeah.
so it's not quite so contrasting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, how courageous do we have to be to stand up on a stage in front of all these people wearing lycra? I mean, they should try and make it as flattering as they can, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's better than it used to be, though. The
That's
poor
true.
men back in the day.
Yeah, that's true, with the really short, yeah, like wrestling kind of suits, yeah.
The ones that used to be like stringer singlets.
Yeah, they were horrible.
All right, going back to that Comm Games.
Oh yes, I was going to tell you why I felt disappointed with the silver. So, yeah, I just kind of, I felt like I'd lost the gold because I had put everything into it and, you know, dropped weight, quit work, had an injury, travelled all that way, had all the family and friends in the audience. And look, again, I did the best. I knew that I did the best that I could, except I couldn't help thinking if I hadn't have missed that snatch, and I'd got the 80 kilo snatch instead of 77. Yes, you're right. I think I missed 77 snatch, then got it on the second attempt, and I think we went for 80 on the third, and I think I missed that. So if I'd got the 80, that would have put a bit more pressure on the Indian girl.
Because she wasn't a strong snatcher, right? She was just a strong
Well,
cleaner
she was
jerk.
just kind of, she was obviously, well, you never know. She was obviously holding, but the tactics were they just matched, do what they had to do to keep just a little bit ahead of us. And
Was she lighter than you?
She was, yeah. She
So
was
she would
2
have just
kilos
won.
lighter.
This was at a stage. So now
Yeah.
the rules are different, guys. But at a certain level, at a certain stage, you could actually win on body weight as well.
Yeah. And that happened to me 4 years later as well, where I lost on body weight. Frustrating, because you think if I'd eaten just one sandwich less or whatever. So yeah. So I did beat myself up a lot after that. You know, if I'd not missed that snatch. But then I think, I guess in my heart, I know that she had a lot in the tank. She had a lot in reserve, and it was obvious if you watched the clean and jerk, she was a lot stronger in the clean and jerk. And once she had won, she came out and sort of she went from 100 clean and jerk to sort of 105 and did it pretty easily. So even if I had done a little bit more and pushed her a bit more, she still could have come out. She probably would have come out on top. The other frustrating thing was her coach said to one of our coaches, I'm hesitating, I'm wondering if I should actually tell you this or not, but I'll tell you, you take it however you like it. Her coach went up and said to one of our coaches, pointing at me, saying she should have won. And the inference was it was because she'd come up from the 48s, but I think everybody around thought there was something more to it. This girl was really obviously not natural.
Yeah.
And she went positive later on at a later comp twice and subsequently banned. So while she may have been tested that day and was obviously clean that day, you kind of wonder, were you cheated a little? Who knows? Anyway, but again, this is what we know we face in the sport, right?
Yeah.
And back to what I was saying before about when I came back from the Worlds in '99, I decided, well, if you've either got to get disillusioned and leave and give up, or you just compete against yourself and do the best that you can do, knowing that it may not be a level playing field and, we're not getting away with the stuff that other countries might be getting away with, or who knows what they're doing. You just got to do the best that you can do and just kind of be happy with that, I think, and that's how I kind of went through my career then.
Do you pay attention to what's happening in weightlifting right now?
Less so, I have to say.
Yeah, but are you aware of all the retroactive positives that have been announced over the last 2 years?
I'm aware that a couple of years ago they started opening old B samples, but I don't think they went as far back as my era. I think they only went back to about 2004 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Like, being handed a medal
later
in the post.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, so at the Manchester Commonwealth Games, a couple of days after my comp, rumours went round that someone had tested positive in one of the earlier sessions, and I was really hoping that, obviously it was mine and maybe my medal colour would change, but it wasn't. It was one of the men's sessions. But
because that's when you got bronze, right?
No, sorry, Manchester, 2002, silver. So I was hoping I might have got upgraded, but yeah, it wasn't to be. But you're right, you've kind of robbed of your moment. And I remember at the Olympics that did happen in the 48 kilo women's. So Tara Knott had won silver, and I think the gold had been won by a Bulgarian lifter who subsequently went positive, and they had a little another medal ceremony session actually in the athletes village a few days later for Tara. She got her gold, I think. Did they have it in the athletes village, or did they do it at the venue? I'm not clear on that, but I think everybody agreed that it was unfortunate that whilst it was great she'd been upgraded to a gold. This is Tara from USA. She'd been robbed of the moment of getting the gold. Yeah, and essentially the first
female Olympian for weightlifting.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she was a 48,
She was 48, yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah, anyway, that's one of the ugly things about our sport, right?
But it is important to talk about as well, because it's something as clean athletes, particularly in Australia, you guys have to deal with.
Yeah, because I think what frustrated me is that the general public didn't know what we had to deal with, and they'd either think we're just really shit, why aren't we winning gold medals at the Olympics or whatever, or they didn't understand, or the other reverse, they think we're all geared up as well, like my bank manager saying, so are you on the gear? And it's not like they just assume that because they hear about these positives in weightlifting overseas, they assume we're all doing it, and they don't realise just how how hammered we would get, you know, at random. One of the reasons that I eventually retired from the sport after 2006 was because the drug testing was just so invasive by that stage. I would be tested, sometimes I wouldn't be tested for months, and then other times they'd turn up 3 times in 1 week. And they'd introduce the blood testing then. I remember being holed up at the gym one night until 10 o'clock at night because I was so dehydrated that I couldn't give a proper sample, because of course you give your sample and then it's got to be checked for the alkaline and the acidity levels to make sure it's the right strength to test, and if it's not, then you've got to give another sample.
I didn't know that.
So
I've never been tested. I'm too crap at weightlifting.
So it was just really, it was really annoying, and they would treat you quite, like at first I was probably felt like, oh, this is really cool, I'm good enough to be tested, you know, and I actually liked the fact that I could say to people, I've been tested and I'm clean, you know. But after a while it just kind of go, oh God, here they are again, are you testing our competitors overseas like this, you know, and I'd start to get frustrated. When I was pregnant in 2003, I didn't retire because I knew that I would want to come back to competing after I had my baby, and I didn't want to have to wait sort of the year or 2 years or whatever.
Because you have to give, what, 6 months or something,
yeah,
right?
I think back then you had to give a year's notice or something. So I just left myself on the register, and I'd still used to go to the gym and watch my fellow lifters lifting, and sometimes I'd coach a little bit. Anyway, I was 5.5 months pregnant in the gym, and as it was called ASDA back then, ASADA now, walked in the gym.
Wait, what was it called before?
ASDA.
Okay.
Yeah, it's now ASADA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still ASADA. So they walked in the gym and they're like, oh, we're here to test you. I'm like, really? Look at my stomach here. Like, it's really, and I was, although I was 5.5 months pregnant, I looked like I was fully pregnant because I was so short. People would always be saying to me, oh, not much long to go now. Actually, I've got heaps to go. But anyway, so it was really obvious I was pregnant. Like, do you really think I'm taking performance-enhancing drugs when I'm pregnant? And they're like, well, your name's still on the list, you should have taken your name off your list then. And I'm like, I don't want to take my name off the list because I want to come back to competing after, anyway. So I had to give a sample while I was pregnant. And they kind of treat you like you're guilty. You know, they get down and sort of crouch down and make sure that you're not sort of cheating as you give your sample.
Yeah.
You know? So it's pretty...
intrusive?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. So I used to feel for the younger lifters. By that stage I was, you know, 31 or something, so a bit more kind of comfortable, and I'd been tested so many times I was more comfortable with it. But at first, and for young lifters, it's quite confronting. And yeah, and they sort of watch you like a hawk, like they think you're going to do the bolt or something. It just kind of feel like they're treating you like you're guilty. Anyway, so yeah, that was one of the reasons. And on there, you had to give, later on when they started introducing the blood testing, they also, you had to say, you give your whereabouts, where you were going to be for the next 3 months or whatever, what time you trained. And by that stage I had kids, or a child, and so if you weren't at the gym when you said you were going to be and they turned up to test you, that was a black, sorry, I keep hitting the bed actually. If you
Are you doing all right with the heat? Do you want me to turn that on?
No, I'm okay. I'm all right. So yeah, you probably know you have to give your whereabouts on a form and say where you're going to be, and if they turn up and you're not there, then it's a black mark, and if you get 3 strikes you could get banned. And I just found that really difficult because I was working, I had a small child who was often sick, and if I got called away or if I was working interstate or something and at short notice and I hadn't updated my whereabouts, they could turn up, and yeah, it just all got too difficult. So I'm all for, don't get me wrong, I'm all for having a clean sport, and obviously that's the means to make it clean by, you know, having that platform, but it just seemed like they were testing the same people over and over again.
I've heard it explained really well in that it's a necessary evil, but it sucks because the only reason they're doing that is not because of you guys, but because of the people across the pond that are not doing the right thing.
But like I said, at least I could say, hey, look how many times I've been tested, and hand on my heart, you know, it's not just about believing me, I've got the paperwork here, you know. Anyway, that's part of the sport, isn't it? So, where were we?
We were starting. We were going into your next games, your next Comm Games. So obviously between then, between Manchester and Melbourne,
I had a child.
you had a kid.
Yeah.
That was Brandon.
Yeah. Yeah. So
The powerlifter.
he's now a powerlifter. Yes, and you never know. He might go into weightlifting one day. If there's still a sport around in New South Wales.
If there's still a sport around in the Olympics, we might get kicked out.
That's true. So, that was funny.
The major appeal of weightlifting is that there is an Olympics for it compared to powerlifting.
Yeah.
But if that's gone, they'll just be on the same plane.
Actually, I had a funny conversation with someone about that the other day. They were talking about a concept that they had, which for the future, and I won't give away anything because I don't want to share their intellectual property. It was a great concept that I had. But anyway, we were talking about what motivates.
Tell me after air.
I'll tell you when we're off the air. But I thought it's a really great concept. But what about where are the athletes going to go with this? Like Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, and they're like, not everybody in weightlifting wants to go to the Olympic Games. I'm like, what? Don't they? Why else would you do it? And I had been lost on me that people, and it's stupid really, because when I was a powerlifter it wasn't about that. But when you're a powerlifter, you aspire to go to your nationals and your regional events like Oceania or Europeans or whatever, or worlds, So for me, I still had aspirations to go to the next level. Okay, it wasn't Olympics back then, but I just kind of had this. So people actually come and train in weightlifting just for fun? Is that what you're telling me? And you're like, yeah. Okay, I hadn't really thought of that, but why not? So anyway, people training for fun. Funny concept.
To be honest, that's what our
what
gym is.
I know, because I read that, and exactly. I hadn't realised there were people out there that just enjoyed weightlifting for weightlifting, and
that's because you understand what goes in and how much pain and agony it is to actually train the movements.
Yeah, well, it's because I was at such an elite level, and so it probably lost some of the funness. And like I said, dealing with drug testers and sore muscles and torn calluses, whereas if you're training 3 or 4 times a week, you probably don't have to deal with all that crap.
No, not as much.
But
we just stop when that hurts.
Yeah.
Take a break.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, no, that wasn't an option for me. It wasn't. No, I couldn't, and it wasn't because of gym rules, although there were pretty strong gym rules. It was because I didn't want to be missing out or standing on the dais in bronze or silver, missing out on the gold, thinking that if only I hadn't missed that session, or So back to Manchester and getting silver. When I reflected on it and beat myself up afterwards, I knew that I had done everything I could do, and that even if I hadn't missed that snatch or whatever, I think it still would have been the same outcome. So I kind of was at peace with that. 4 years later was a completely different feeling, because so I had my son in January 2004, and I had through 2000 and the end of 2002 and 2003, I had sort of toyed with the idea of maybe trying to do another Olympics, the 2004, but the timing of getting pregnant and having baby, there was just no way I was going to have time to make it back to qualify for 2004, and obviously by that time.
Was that Athens, 2004?
Yes,
yeah.
And Deb was on the scene by then. I would have had a tough time, I think, to take her off the team for Athens.
This is Deb Ackerson.
Yeah. Awesome lifter. Good friend.
Deborah Lovely Ackerson.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
She's been on the podcast.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and listen to it. So 2004, I decided to start training again just to get my body in shape, and thought maybe I'd do a nationals, and I did do the nationals that year, and it was kind of funny that I won the nationals by then Brandon was about 8 months old in the audience, and I was thinking, either I'm really good or the state of weightlifting is really shit, that someone can have a baby and come back and, you know, win a nationals after having, and it was a cesarean, so it was full-on abdominal surgery that I had to recover from in order to get back in shape. Anyway, so I don't know what she is. We'll say that I was really good, okay?
Well, I'm curious as to like what it takes to come back from that, because I do coach a lot of women, and
yeah,
I mean, I coach my mum. My mum started weightlifting later in life, so it's been years since she ever had us, but like there are a lot of things that you have to take into account when you're getting into weightlifting. It's a dynamic, jumpy sport.
Yeah, I found it really difficult. I was researching a lot around that time about how to come back, and even when I was pregnant, you know, all the books and all the internet sites were all saying you can train while you're pregnant, but you know, they didn't have weightlifting, I don't think, in mind. And they'd say stuff like, yeah, you can do your walking on the treadmill. Anyway, so I found it really difficult when researching what I could do and what I shouldn't do. So that was hard. I think I still trained a little bit while I was pregnant, just very, very light, sort of power cleans and things, until I couldn't anymore because my stomach was too big. But yeah, when coming back,
bar path probably
yeah,
started.
this is not good for my swing. I'm swinging the bar out too far here, and this might be permanent. But yeah, coming back, so I was told, I think because I was pretty fit when I fell pregnant, I bounced back from the C-section surgery pretty well. You know, you're not supposed to drive for 2 weeks. I think I was driving within 5 days or something.
You're not meant to drive for 2 weeks. Why is that? Because of the sitting?
No, well, not feet. I had a manual, so you can't lift your foot to stamp on the brake quickly. You've lost that sort of strength in the lower hip flexor kind of area.
Okay.
So yeah, so I wasn't supposed to drive, but I did. And then I remember I started training about 6 weeks after, and I used to park the pram in the corner of the gym with the baby in it, and you know, the dropping of the weights would make him jump. That's probably why he likes lifting now, because he's just had this thumping of weights since he was a baby. Anyway, yeah, I think I went for a checkup when about 10 weeks, and the doctor said, okay, you can probably start doing some light power cleans maybe in 2 weeks' time. And I was thinking, shit, I've been doing it for the last 4 weeks. Whoops. But it hadn't hurt me. I just had to play it by ear and just go.
And the doctor knew what power cleans were?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he was a doctor who knew the sport. So
oh, awesome.
Yeah. Someone out at the State Sports Centre. So, yeah. Anyway, I bounced back pretty quickly to a certain level, and then I kind of got stuck. And I just felt like, you know, I'd heard stories about women, although I think they used to talk about it on the Pacific Islands, that, you know, people had done, had babies and come back and been even stronger, and they were saying it was something to do with the hormones, but that certainly wasn't the case for me. I don't think my leg strength ever got back to where it was. So my snatches got back up there. I got back to sort of an 85 kilo snatch, but my clean and jerk really struggled coming back. I don't think I got to more than 100 kilos, or I was struggling to get back up to 100 kilos after having Brandon. So but I was just training, just as I say, to get fit and try and get back into shape. And next minute I was at the nationals, and then it was like, hey, I think I've qualified for the Commonwealth Games trials, and wouldn't it be cool if I made the Commonwealth Games team? And then I did make the team, and then of course, when I get a bit of a taste for competition, I get pretty competitive. So actually at those trials, there was 3 of us in the 58 kilo category, all fighting for position, and I was pretty determined to be selected. So I did well enough there, and then I sort of got towards the Commonwealth Games, and I was looking like I had a chance at a medal, but which I had not even not even entered my mind. I thought it would just be cool to go to another Commonwealth Games, represent my country, and in home, not hometown because it was in Melbourne, but home country. You know, I thought it would be kind of like what the Olympics was
And
like.
did we have a full side for that as well?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So so before I knew it, I was at another Commonwealth Games and ended up with a bronze medal. And back to what you were saying before, I was equal second, but the one who ended up with the silver was lighter body weight, so she got the silver and I got the bronze. So yeah, I almost came away with nothing because we hadn't realised that there was a girl from PNG in fourth who was kind of breathing down her necks, and we were so busy looking at what the ones ahead were doing that I think all of a sudden she was up there and was like, oops, lucky she missed her lift or something. And yeah, anyway, I came away with the bronze, but I was ecstatic about that because unlike 4 years earlier, I felt like I'd lost the gold. When you win silver, you feel like you've lost gold. With the bronze, I was just ecstatic to be on a podium when I hadn't anticipated I would be, and particularly I hadn't been training the volume. I'd been trying to juggle, you know, a baby, looking after a baby, and all the guilt, you know, leaving him with family to look after both while I was training, but also in the training camp for the few weeks before the games.
Yeah, I think I looked up some interviews you gave, and
it was hard.
They kind of like, I was like, oh wow. I think you talked about leaving him for a few weeks.
It was 4 weeks, yeah.
Where you didn't see him because you knew if he saw you, he'd start crying. And
I couldn't see him beforehand. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I hadn't seen him. We had a 2-week training camp in Canberra, and then we also had.
Was that at the AIS?
Yep. And then we also great facilities down there. It was awesome. And then we also had obviously the time in Melbourne, and yeah, when he came to Melbourne, I thought I can't see him before my comp because I knew it would upset me. And sure enough, apparently as soon as I came out onto the platform for the presentation when they present all the lifters, he was in the audience with Steve and he burst out crying, was screaming for me. So Steve had to take him out into the foyer, and he ended up watching the whole comp from the foyer.
Oh, wow.
not in the auditorium because Brandon was crying. So poor little thing.
You didn't hear him though?
No, I had no idea. That's probably
for the best, right?
Yeah, probably for the best. And it was probably the first and last only comp where I really enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed the experience. I wasn't that nervous, which was unusual for me, and I kind of enjoyed the crowd cheering, and it was a good comp.
How did you go in the snatches at that comp?
Yeah, so I was in equal first actually after the snatches. I did, I think I was 80 kilo snatch.
And did you miss any snatches in that one?
I don't think so.
So
I think I actually might have got 5 out of 6 lifts at that comp. I think I got my all snatches. I think I went 75, 78, 80.
Yeah.
And then something like that. And then my clean and jerks got the first 2, and then the last one, Luke said to me in typical Luke fashion, right, it's you've done what we've asked you to do, now what do you want? And I was like, let's go for 100. I could have gone for 99, but I chose 100 because I really thought I would get it because I had been really training well and I felt like my leg strength had come back. And anyway, I missed it, and I've watched that lift so many times, and why did I miss it? And kick myself, but again, it is what it is.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right?
Hey?
They always say shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, but anyway, it is what it is. And like I said, I was just really happy to get a bronze, but it could have been almost the girl who got silver missed her first 2 clean and jerks, I think, and nearly bombed.
Wow.
So it was a close one. But anyway, yeah, so there it was. And I'd already decided that was going to be my last comp beforehand because it was just getting too difficult with, juggling work, family, and I don't like doing things by half. Like I guess the reason I had been successful was because I was so disciplined and dedicated and did everything I could. And I just felt like towards the end I couldn't be that selfish anymore. I had a baby to consider and a husband and work, and it's just juggling too much stuff. So something had to give, and that plus all the drug testing, and I was getting older and I had a sore back, and it was just time. I thought it's better to finish on a good note than keep going. So yeah, that was when I retired.
Do you still do any sort of training?
I wish I did more. I try, but I'm very irregular. So I do go to a gym on the Northern Beaches called Kingdom Gym at Brookvale, and I just don't go as often as I should. I aspire to get there 3 times a week. I'm lucky if I get there once. Just life gets in the way.
When was the last time you did like a snatch or a clean and jerk?
I snatched actually a few months ago, about 40 kilos or something.
How did that feel?
Pretty hard and pretty depressing. That's the hardest part about when you're retired and you know what you used to do and you can't do it anymore. I can still squat. I still squat sort of 65 kilos or something, nowhere near the weights I used to, but yeah, snatching, and I don't clean and jerk. No. Yeah, I've still got the technique though. People watch me when I occasionally do throw some light weights around, and they go, "Oh God, still got the movement. It's just a bit slower and heavier." Yeah. But
what do you think sort of sets you apart from like the rest of the athletes that you competed with?
Well, that's a hard question.
Think about it.
Do you mean back then?
Back then, yeah.
I don't know that anything really set me apart, because I think we all tried to be as professional as we could. I think I was a lot older than most of the other lifters, particularly the girls, and I actually thought that benefited me because I was a bit more focused and less distracted by things that young people might be distracted with. So maybe that sort of helped with my mental toughness. Yeah, but I don't think I was any better than other athletes. I think I was just really focused and determined. And I knew, because I was older, because I didn't start weightlifting till I was 27 years old, and I knew that I would have a pretty short window of career, whereas I think younger people who start in their teens or 20, they probably think they've got loads of time to make it, whereas I knew I had to be really efficient with my time because I didn't have long. So maybe that helped. Don't know if it set me apart, but it certainly would have made me more focused, I think.
Yeah, because you knew you only had to focus for a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Funny, I said to someone the other day, they were talking about CrossFit. I said, I'm too lazy for that. I like weightlifting and powerlifting because I could do a lift or maybe 3 reps and then I could sit down and have a rest. The CrossFitters are, yes, something completely different.
They're another breed, aren't they?
Yeah, it makes me cringe to watch it. I'm impressed and I cringe at the same time.
What do you think it takes to become a good weightlifter? Like, are there traits? Are there specific things that good weightlifters do?
Okay, so you have to believe in yourself, and I mean that you have to commit, as in to a lift. I remember Luke saying once, you have to respect the bar because it's cold and hard and it will hurt you, and it's true. If you're going to take a lift, a big lift, and you don't fully believe you can do it, you're not gonna. If you hesitate for the slightest, split second, you're not going to get that lift. You've got to go into that lift knowing that you can do it and believing that you can do it. And so that's just for lifting. And then I think just generally you've got to be committed to the sport, because if you, again, back to what I said before about if you make a half-ass sort of effort, then you'll get out of it what you put into it. So, you know, if you are doing it for fun and you just want to, you know, have fun, enjoyment, training with a bunch of people doing the same kind of lifts, then that's fine if that's what you want to get out of it and just do some decent lifts. But if you want to improve and get better, then you have to be prepared to work hard, put in some extra hours maybe.
And when you talk about working hard, is that just going through the sets and reps, or is it something more? Is it like an intentional practice? Were there things that you thought about while you were training, or were you just like, oh, I've got to hit this weight, I've got to hit this weight?
I only thought about weightlifting. I used to...
Sorry, I meant specific to your weightlifting.
Yeah. So, it's a hard question. I used to have cues in my mind about what technically I needed to do to lift a weight, but I also used to trust my coach, and I think things may be a little different now with some lifters, and a lot of lifters have more buy-in to their, to their program. But back when I was lifting, I was the athlete and I had a coach. He wrote the program, he told me what to do, he told me what lifts to take, and I did what he told me to do. I didn't argue with him, and if he said, no, you're looking like you're having a shit day, we're going to back off today, or if he said you're on fire, we're going to step it up, I'd do what he said. So I trusted his instinct. Does that kind of answer the question? So but I also, I wouldn't skip sessions. Like if a friend of mine was getting married, I missed her wedding because it would have meant missing one of my Saturday sessions, and I didn't want to. Again, it's about not wanting to be at that comp thinking, oh, maybe I would have done better if I hadn't missed that session or those 3 sessions. Because you miss one session for one reason. There's a reason every week why to miss a session, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
There's always an excuse. So you can't have excuses. You've just got to commit if you want to be an elite lifter. It depends on what you're training for.
Well, I mean, I'm at that stage in my life now where everyone my age is getting married, so I've got a bunch of weddings, and I can see how that would be an inconvenience to your training.
And also dietary, especially when I was cutting weight. It's like dieting, there'd be cake day at work, or there'd be...
That's my favourite day.
My favourite day too. Or, someone's birthday and they bring in chocolates. So if you just say, okay, just one, or just this slice of cake, like every week there'd be something. So you've just kind of got to cut it, completely and say, no, that's it, just for this short 4 weeks or whatever it is, 3 months, whatever goal you're aiming for. Just kind of got to give it everything, I think.
Were there any like big technique faults that you sort of battled with throughout your career? Like anything that either you or Luke were just always like, oh, I told you not to do that, or, we really need to hammer this out, other than the powering everything at the start?
Yeah, it changed over. So I was lifting for 8 years. So at the beginning it was my natural instinctive trying to muscle everything up and power everything. So that was difficult in the beginning. I also used to jump back a lot. So in my snatches and cleans, I'd always jump back about a foot. And other people, I think it used to frustrate Luke a bit, because other coaches would say, oh, don't jump back so much, don't jump back. And Luke would say, you know what, sometimes you just got to work with a fault and try and do what you can with that fault. So rather than telling her to stop jumping back, it's okay if she jumps back, if she pulls the bar with her. So, you just kind of have to work with it. Trying to think what else. probably the two that come to mind. Yeah, I didn't really swing the bar or anything. I used to have a pretty good pull.
Yeah.
So it was just.
In all the videos I saw, like, you look very strong and very proficient. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's probably just the jumping back. That's the worst one. But anyway.
Well, some people teach that.
Yeah. Oh, the techniques that are taught now are so different. You know, the way we used to do pulls, clean pulls, snatch pulls, quite different to the way I see it being done in some gyms now.
How so?
Well, we used to always be taught to really sort of get up on our toes and almost try and hold the pull at the top, whereas I see others sort of staying on their heels and not sort of doing that full extension. So they, or, you know, more bringing their elbows up to the side, whereas I used to sort of tend to keep my elbows, arms straight. But I think, again, it was because I had that tendency to pull with my arms. So to correct it, I was taught to keep my arms straight, whereas perhaps other people don't have that fault, would be taught a different way. Yeah. Yeah, you've got to tailor it, don't you? Tailor the lift.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there are a million ways to skin the cat. And
yeah.
There are obviously some key principles, like the bar probably has to end up overhead in a locked out position.
Yep. And be held there.
And held there,
Pause
yeah.
until you get the down signal. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I sometimes wonder if we get a little bit too hung up on technique here. I haven't experienced what they teach, how they teach in other countries, other than what you see on the old sort of videos of, you know, the Bulgarian training
School of
days.
Champions.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
awesome video. But yeah, I kind of wonder, do they focus on technique so much, or is it more important to be strong? And I wonder whether we should be maybe focusing more on being stronger, because I've seen some pretty appalling techniques out there still. If they're strong and get the lift, doesn't matter how ugly it is. I mean, obviously we want to be safe, and there's a fine line between if the technique's really bad, that's going to impede the lift. But yeah, sometimes I think there's a bit too much emphasis on technique.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a fine line you walk. And weightlifting is a funny sport in that it's so technical, yet strength plays such a major role in it. You know, I mean, you can argue that. I mean, I know powerlifting is also very technical in certain respects, but like being strong is like the overall just goal. You just need to be strong. And weightlifting sort of in the middle there, where, you know, you see the best weightlifters are freakishly strong, but they also move quite well.
Yeah. So we could analyse it forever, couldn't we?
Well, that's why I have this podcast, so that I can do that forever.
Fun.
Do you have any closing thoughts or asks of our audience?
Closing thoughts? No, I think I do miss weightlifting. I think I got a lot out of it, and I use a lot of the skills and traits that I learned from weightlifting. I use it in life, you know, in my work. Some of the things we used to do, like when we were preparing for a comp in Fiji or in Nauru, you know, we used to shut all the windows and close the doors and turn the fans off so that we mimic those hot conditions.
Is that why you're not struggling as much as I am right now?
Yeah. It's pretty humid. And we had a hot summer. Crazy. So the preparation, I think, is so important, and the things that we used to do, like not train on the same platform all the time, because you might get to a different competition in a different place and you may not get the platform of your choice, and you have to deal with it, and you don't want to be freaking out because you haven't got your selected platform.
Or bar.
That's right. So we used to mix it up a bit, and training at different times of the day, because your comp may not be at the same time that you're used to training at. So I think a lot of kind of risk management, I call it risk management because I work in risk management now. You know, being prepared for the unexpected, and I think we used to do that really well.
Do you think weightlifting makes you mentally tougher? Or do you think you were mentally tough to begin with?
don't know if I was mentally tough to begin with, but I certainly was when I came out at the end. It takes a lot to kind of to freak me out, and I wonder if that's because of the experiences that I had, you know. Yeah, I think having to perform under pressure, you know, if you've missed your first 2 snatches and you've got to come out for your third or bomb, the pressure of, you know, not letting your coach down, or your family, you know, when you're at a prestigious event, or yourself, you know, after you've made sacrifices. So yeah, I think I am tougher, and I have high expectations of myself and probably other people unfairly. So I get disappointed very easily in, you know, if somebody doesn't put in effort. And yeah, probably it's because of the experiences that I had. But like I said, I think it made me a much more confident person, a much more focused, driven person, and yeah, I'll prepare for everything. Don't want to think, if you do your homework, you'll pass the test, so they say. So yeah, get back in there and do your homework and train hard.
Cool. And you don't have anything that you want to plug or, you know, tell the audience about, do you?
No.
Okay, cool.
I suppose if you're interested in reading about my story,
yeah,
I do have a blog.
Oh, cool. What's the blog?
So I'm a bit of a travel fanatic. I love to travel, so I started writing a blog called Travels with Tash. It's on travelswithtash.net, and it was just writing about my trips and tips and holidays and stuff. And then I thought, hang on, a lot of people ask me about my journey of being an Olympian. They might actually want to read about this, and people have said, you know, you should write a book. So I did. I actually did keep a journal while I was training. So yeah, it's a journey of an Olympian on travelswithtash.net.
That's so cool. Because I never found it when I was digging through everything.
There's even the odd embarrassing video as well of my first Comm. So
I'm definitely going to go look it up.
Check it out.
So that's travelswithtash.net.
Yeah, and then click on Journey of an Olympian.
I'll be sure to put that in the show notes.
Cool.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Guys, you can find RAW Barbell Club at RAW Barbell Club on all of our social medias. So that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all of the in-between. If you love this episode like I did, please give it a share, comment, tell me how, what I could have done better, what I should have asked, what I could have asked, and what I shouldn't have asked. And also, guys, if you really, really want to help the podcast, you now can. Making this podcast is really fun, and I love doing it, but it does cost us a lot of money from hosting and all the other costs that are involved. So please consider donating. All we ask is the price of a coffee, and all you have to do to donate is go to www.rawbarbellclub.com/donate. Thanks once again for being here, Natasha.
You're
and
welcome.
guys, check out travelswithtash.net. See you later.